Why significant challenges lie ahead for South Sudanese in 2026 and beyond. South Sudan has experienced prolonged hardship with hopes for improvement, but successive years have been plagued by economic or security disasters, mirroring past trends. Analysts have zoomed in on the future, starting with the end of this year, 2026, and things are murky. Can we label the analysts as doomsayers?
Not really.
Because their projections are grounded in facts that are discernible even to a pupil, if not a kindergarten student. One of the reasons South Sudanese will still face worse consequences is perpetual economic meltdown. Following the outbreak of war in December 2013, South Sudan's economy has struggled to recover, severely debilitated by the destructive civil war that has plagued the world's youngest nation. The economic situation worsened, with the pound's value kept depreciating. The economy continued to be unabatedly haunted by hyperinflation. It is evident that the economy of South Sudan has not recovered due to persistent and widespread corruption.
Corruption became too much. They took a violation of the law, became too much. I think the time has come. We should fire a squad, not even sitting. Fire a squad ourselves to fight corruption. Otherwise, we don't have to do الرئيس البكير مطلوب يرجع لقانون بتاع قانون بتاع SPLM fire squad. By the way, corruption is even worse than raping. It's even worse than killing. We have under second we have fire squad which are raping. Zolo have raping we have fire squad. Zolo have compromise we have fire squad. Corruption is worse. Is worse, I tell you. Is worse than a camouflage. Desertion in the man can't go to the zone. A time has come, we should record ourselves.
Sources allude that the Bank of South Sudan, central bank vaults, are allegedly empty of cash. It is quite thought-provoking how an oil-producing nation would have insufficient funds in its bank. The appointment of Adut Kiir, President Salva Kiir's first daughter, as presidential envoy for special projects was expected to yield positive outcomes. However, the current state of affairs suggested otherwise. Things have taken a turn for the worse outcome for ordinary South Sudanese. According to sources privy to the matter, Adut Kiir was brought into the government purposely to consolidate power, either for her dad or for her own selfish motive. The current Minister of Information, Honorable before assuming his ministerial role through appointment on recommendation by Adut, had previously described Adut as Wun Weng in Dinka, meaning owner of the cow. It had been reported that since stepping in, Adut indeed tried to stop corruption, only to channel the loots to herself through her company called Crawford Capital. There is a lot of information available regarding Crawford Capital. Look it up on the internet. What has happened is akin to a scenario in which the shepherd puts the hyena in charge of the goat. With all the public coffers and national resources being concentrated under one person, unscrutinized, implies that Adut will leverage these resources to consolidate power for her father or the first family, thereby exacerbating the daily struggles of ordinary South Sudanese citizens, including civil servants and the military. If this is not true, then when did we last hear about salaries being paid, considering the reported increase in revenues by the South Sudan Revenue Authority and the Ministries of Finance and Petroleum? There are false claims circulating that elections will take place in South Sudan come December 2026, despite common knowledge that no such elections are scheduled. If elections were indeed planned, it would justify Adut's revenue collection efforts to fund election campaign activities. It is projected that South Sudanese government critics, journalists, and civil society groups are anticipated to encounter significant challenges or substantial difficulties during the electoral process. If they voice objections regarding electoral mismanagement, irregularities, or outcomes, they risk being silenced, imprisoned, or even killed. As violence and insecurity continue to plague the country, those feeling excluded from the electoral process could turn to violent protests, which would ultimately affect the ordinary South Sudanese the most. Elections period could see a surge in intercommunal violence resulting from lawlessness, as militant groups potentially foment chaos and disorder. The brutality exhibited by President Kiir's regime towards innocent South Sudanese in the absence of polls may intensify during the electoral process. Life will become extremely difficult for the South Sudanese. But this is not to scare us from the need for conducting elections. The Middle East crisis, if prolonged, could have far-reaching consequences for South Sudan due to potential oil flow disruptions and subsequent worsening of the current situation. South Sudan is dependent on oil, accounting for approximately 98% of its economy. Any unwarranted disruption to its oil exports via the Red Sea would cripple the economy. It may take time before it dawns on the people of South Sudan, but eventually, the citizens of South Sudan will come to admit that the current state of affairs under Adut's leadership is more deplorable than it was under President Kiir when he didn't have Adut's political intervention in government affairs. What do you think? Let's know your thoughts in the comment section. Please subscribe to the SSGTV South Sudan Global.